everybody. Happy Tuesday. Tuesday might be my new favorite day of the week when it's with you, Bill. Welcome to Beyond the Arc.
Thank you, Ashley.
Moss. We got Bill Reiter. Bill, how are you doing this lovely Tuesday?
I'm amazing. The weather is finally, I know everyone's going to feel sorry for me. The weather's amazing finally in LA after 3 horrific days of rain over the last week. It was 3 over the last week, if I'm being fair. I'm great. I'm great. You know what? Tuesday's my new favorite day, too. Who needs Fridays when we got you and me on Tuesday?
Because as someone who lives in Miami where it rains probably from June to September every single day, hearing you complain about 3 days of rain is actually very hilarious to me.
Well, what's great about that is many of the people listening to this live somewhere where it's cold, and they're not feeling bad for either of us. Having lived in Miami, Miami's okay, too. I'm from Iowa, Ash. Just like all it does is snow year-round.
You are from Iowa. Listen, we have so much to get into. We have a really fun show for everybody. I hope everyone's going to be as excited as we are about it. But let's just dive into it. It's Power Ranking Tuesday.
Go.
All right, so let's dive into some power rankings. We got some storylines in the NBA that kind of partner with these power rankings absolutely perfectly. So you want to start top to bottom, or you want to start bottom to top?
Let's start top. Let me ask you a question. I want sort of parameters here because Colin Ward-Henninger puts these together over at CBSSports.com. Mm-hmm. Great guy, NBA writer, awesome dude. Catch him on CBS Sports HQ, based out of the Bay. Are we allowed to kind of? There's some eyebrow raisers in here. Are we allowed to? What's the sort of scale which we can kind of go at Colin? Like medium strong?
Like we wouldn't be authentic if we didn't go out. So let's go
I'm going to channel yours. You're such a New Yorker. You're inner New Yorker. I'm going to get aggressive. Do you want to start at the top? Because I actually think he nailed number one.
Let's start at the top. There's no surprises here for Denver Nuggets. I know that some people may find that surprising since they're not at the top of the Western Conference, but I think that the reigning champs are just, they're flowing, they're rocking and rolling. They don't get too high, they don't get too low. They're very much a consistent basketball team. I think it's pretty much the general consensus at this point that Jokic is going to go ahead and win MVP. I mean, Bill, let me know if that's what you're hearing. Is that pretty much where we are now?
I mean, look, I'm one of the voters, so I got to do the old wait and see and make sure he plays. I'm not knocking on wood. I'm literally knocking on wood here. Assuming he plays and doesn't get hurt, yes, I think it's his. Now, I think there's a world where the Thunder could win the Western Conference, who are right there at 2 underneath the Nuggets and Colin's power rankings. If Jokic missed a bunch of time, maybe it's SGA. But you're right. It's gonna be the big guy in Denver who's going to win MVP. And I think it's going to be the Nuggets who are probably going to come out top in the Western Conference. And I'm convinced that they're currently the best team in the NBA. So I'm down with the Nuggets at number one, whatever everybody else's record happens to be.
I'm actually very much, after that Boston Celtics Denver Nuggets game a few nights ago, I very much, and as much as it pains me as a New Yorker to say this, I would love a finals of Denver and Boston. It just looked like the 7 games of that would be so much fun. And I will say this, I had the Celtics, and I've had the Celtics, much to the dismay of my fellow Knicks fans. I really think that this could be the Boston Celtics year to kind of get it done. But every time I watch the Denver Nuggets play and just how consistent they've been over the course of the season, I think it's a very strong possibility they can two-peat. Like, it's
I agree.
Real.
Yeah, and look, I think the top 3 are right because Boston's there at 3. You got the Thunder at 2. And we've talked about this with John Gonzalez, our other co-host. By the way, is it co-host when there's 3 of us or tri-host?
I still think we go with co. I don't like try. I don't like how that.
I said tri-host on the radio and got mocked by basically everybody. So I'm with you. Look, I think the East is capable of being harder than it is now because it feels like there are so many injuries. I know we're going to get to your Knicks later on. I think that's a dangerous team when they get healthy. But I'm with you. Boston at 3 kind of makes sense because the Thunder I would have obviously the Celtics ahead of the Thunder on paper, and I know that Colin kind of does it's week to week thing. Yeah. So it gives them some wiggle room. The Thunder are an outstanding basketball team. They're top 5 in offensive and defensive rating. Shea's a star. They're a stud. So, like, whatever order you want to go, Denver, Thunder, Celtics, I think those 3 teams, you can put them in any order, and there's a case. You can make a case. These are the best teams. These are the best 3 teams right now in the NBA.
Well, I mean, speaking of the Thunder, they're ahead of the Nuggets in the Western Conference, and they're up 3 spots in this week's power rankings. They're sitting at number 2. The Celtics round out the top 3. They're actually down 2 spots, although they are still at the top of the Eastern Conference in this power ranking. They have fallen 2 spots. Bill, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like these are the three best teams. These are the three best teams in the NBA, and the Celtics are actually the best team I think on paper. If you want to look at the analytics, if you want to do the eye test, if you want to just remind people that they should have made the finals last year against the Miami Heat, gotten that 3-0 hole, and then came storming back and kind of ran out of steam in that game seven.
Right.
And that team added Kristaps Porzingis, pretty good. Drew Holiday, pretty good. So that's by every measure, they're the best team in the game. But again, like I think Denver's probably a better bet, a more reliable team in a vacuum when we get to the playoffs. And if Colin wants to put the Thunder 2, I get it. I would go Denver 1, Celtics 2, Thunder 3, but I think these are the three best teams in the game right now.
I just think it's so funny when we talk about the Boston Celtics. I mean, Jason Tatum just catches strays left and right. And this is a team that's been number one in the East for pretty much the entire season. I mean, if you look at the little synopsis next to the Boston Celtics, it basically is like all he did was put up 13 of his 29 points in the fourth quarter to beat the Suns, and Boston's first in efficiency rating. And, well, it's like they're winning basketball games. Jason Tatum doesn't need to have a good game every single day, and I feel like he sneezes the wrong way, and it's like, yep, that's why he's not an MVP. It's kind of insane the way that Jason Tatum is treated. Now, look, I don't think he's the MVP. I started this off by saying
he's not.
He's very much Jokic, but I do think it's hilarious that like he steps the wrong way on the court. He has a bad game, and it's just ammunition for everybody who's like, that's why he's not an MVP. See, I told you. It's like chill on Jason Tatum a little bit, guys, just a little bit.
I'm going to look, I like the kindness, and I want to lean into a kindness Tuesday with you, Ash. I'm just going to gently, not on the sneezing. So we should do this. Like, I think the power rankings are good. When you get to the playoffs, I would absolutely reorder these teams based on it being playoff basketball than regular season basketball. Different conversation. And that's where I get worried about Tatum. And we've talked about his clutch shooting and some of the, oh my God, moments he's had in big playoff games. But you're right. The guy right now, it is the regular season, is a stud. He is the best player on again, maybe the best team in the NBA. There's no reason you can't give him his flowers in the regular season. He's got to earn them in the playoffs, but maybe different conversation, different time.
Now, 4 through 6 is where things get a little bit interesting for me because right now we have the at 4. They have jumped 3 spots from the last power rankings. They're sitting at 4th in the West, right underneath the Timberwolves, who have fallen from that top spot after losing Karl Anthony Towns. They're in a little bit of a situation over there. They've lost 2 in a row. For me, the interesting part of the 3 of these teams, 4 through 6, is the Phoenix Suns. They've jumped 10 spots and are just finally out of the play-in for now. We know with the Phoenix Suns that can go a multiple different ways at any time during the remainder of the season. 10 spots is kind of a lot for a team that's as inconsistent as the Phoenix Suns. No Devin Booker for the time being. Bradley Beal, some days he's hot, some days he's not. The team as a whole, not very deep, not really figuring out a way to play with each other consistently. 10's a lot, Bill. 10's a lot.
Yeah, so Devin came back for that win against Cleveland. They put up, it was
right.
And producer Aaron's, got to correct me. I think it was 88 points between the big 3. So, all right, I saw Collins that they jumped 10 spots from 15 to 5, and I literally jumped 10 feet out of my chair out in sort of outrage. But then I thought about it, and we had this conversation about the Suns yesterday, and I think I was more bullish than certainly than John because we have this bet, and you. I'll make this case for Colin. I'm not sure about 5, but they looked so good against Cleveland last night. And I know, like you're playing a team that doesn't have Donovan Mitchell, but that's still a Cleveland and Mobley. It's still a Cleveland team that's been pretty gritty and plays pretty good defense, and they've had some good wins, including against Boston in the last week. So for me, I think like this is a perfect encapsulation that when these 3 guys play, and Beal looked pretty good too, right? That's sort of a question mark. I think they're outstanding. And I don't think we have a big 3 era anymore in the NBA. It's a lot of big 2s and some depth and some other approaches. But this is a big 3 and basically nothing else. And actually, you can talk me out of it. I want your New Yorker common sense. But I find myself kind of being like, all right, like Kevin Durant might be 36 going on 102, and Book might be hurt all the time. And maybe I thought Beal was washed 4 weeks ago, but I'm kind of in. I like the way they're playing, and it's so much firepower.
I'm not sold just yet. Here's the thing. You beating a Donovan Mitchell-less Cavs team and all the other situations that Cleveland Cavaliers are dealing with right now, doesn't move the needle for me. Now, look, I say this all the time. There are difference makers in teams. There are guys who can go ahead and supersede just a really bad situation on talent alone in games, maybe. Sometimes in series, depending on what that matchup is. But my biggest concern is it seems that you cannot get the three of these guys on the court consistently enough to really figure out if this works and how it works. Devin Booker obviously came back. Bradley Beal's dealing with a back injury. Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. He does Kevin Durant things. But we've seen the story of the Phoenix Suns where you rely heavily on just two guys to carry the weight of an entire team against teams that are stacked, against teams that are deep. And my question is, if they're not going to play the type of team basketball they did when Devin Booker was out and they faced the Denver Nuggets, and everybody had points, assists, rebounds in some way, shape, or form. That's not the DNA of this Suns team. They don't normally play like that. How do you go against a Denver Nuggets team? How do you go against a Clippers team? How do you go against a Timberwolves? Like, how do you go against maybe Timberwolves? I think a good example, but
I think they'd be the Timberwolves. Yeah, because Cat's out. Look, I don't think anybody. I was going to say that I don't think anybody's beating Denver. That's not true. I think I have Denver as a big favorite against anybody they play, right? Mm-hmm. Assuming everybody's healthy. Against the Clippers, it's a war of attrition because when you look at that Clippers team, and largely for me, that's Kawhi Leonard, but it's Paul George too. And then you look at the Phoenix Suns, every one of those guys that matter are ticking time bombs of possible injuries. Mm-hmm. But if I told you, because I am being, this is not always natural to my personality, but I'm being very optimistic here, very positive. If I told you the Phoenix Suns, their big three, Beal, Durant, and Booker, would all be healthy for at least the first 3 rounds of the playoffs, would you be willing to power rank them as a top 6 team? They're 6 now in Collins. I think I would. I think I would.
I'm 50-50 on that because I'm somebody who really believes in team basketball. And I don't believe in this day and age. If this were 12 years ago, 15 years ago, when, the big threes were a thing and everyone had a big three and it didn't really matter because it was big three versus big three, I would say, yeah, I believe it. But I think that teams are a lot less focused on getting 3 superstars together for instant gratification and more interested in building teams top to bottom that are really, really deep and well constructed. And I think Phoenix, although they have guys I'm huge fans of, and I think that the talent between the 3 of them is there, I don't know how you can bet against a team that has that level of talent and then some. That's my concern for them. Is there enough outside of the names that you mentioned to get it done? Because everyone has an off night. Everyone has a bad game. What do you do in the interim during that process is a maker or a breaker when it comes to winning a series sometimes. And that's my concern with Phoenix.
Look, you make a good point in the fact that I don't think that this is a well thought out plan for a basketball team. It's a newish now then owner who came in and got his hands dirty and got in there. And they've traded away their future. It has to work now. They are not, name whatever, they're not the Celtics, they're not the Thunder, they're not any of these teams that are currently championship contenders or will be. So I think it was a mistake, but I do find myself just being seduced by the talent. Do I think they can beat everybody and win 4 playoff series? No, I don't. They'll run out of steam. They don't have depth. You're right. I think that they can shock some teams if they get the right matchups early in a postseason. And maybe I'm just captivated by last night. And by the way, they barely beat that Cavs team, but
barely.
Those 3 guys are talented. And when Book is back, they're just a different basketball team. So I'm cautiously optimistic on an Optimism Tuesday that it's going to work for Phoenix.
Let's talk about the Cavs real quick. They're steady at number 6. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell, big question mark for them. The weekend has come and gone. We were going to get an update on whether or not there was light at the end of the tunnel. It looks like he's going to need some time. Evan Mobley also trying to get healthy. Yep. This Cavs team needs some help. But, I mean, staying steady at number 6, considering everything that's been thrown at this team, is either a testament to how good they actually are or how bad the East actually is. Which way are you leaning?
I think the East is bad right now because of injuries, and I'm glad that I think it's fortuitous that we've got the Cavs at 6 and the Timberwolves at 7 because I think they're very similar teams even before their injuries. And obviously Donovan Mitchell, we hope will come back sooner rather than later. And Karl-Anthony Towns, we'll see. We're expecting maybe a playoff return. They're both teams that don't get buckets as consistently as you need to be a legitimate championship contender. They're outstanding defensively, and before the injuries, like consistently number 1 and 2, Timberwolves 1, Cavs 2 in defense. And I think from Cleveland's perspective, I bought them before all the injuries more than I bought Minnesota, in part, right, because they're in the East and not in the West, and in part because I've just seen Donovan Mitchell go off for 50 in a playoff game. He won't win you 4 games on his own. We've seen that, but I think he can win you a game or two, potentially, just at his individual excellence, coupled with a really deep team. There's a lot of guys that play basketball at a high level. They're the kind of team you've talked about. That team really came together, and then they added Mitchell to the mix. So to answer your question, if Donovan Mitchell is healthy, and I love Mobley. If they're a healthy roster in April, I don't think they're winning an NBA championship, but if they made some crazy run to the conference finals, I would not be shocked by it the way I would some other teams.
Well, I mean, listen, Donovan Mitchell's focus is all, about getting healthy, but he is now officially ineligible for any NBA season awards after passing the threshold of games that you must play. He has not reached that threshold. It is now very much close to the end of the season. So Donovan Mitchell officially is ineligible for any NBA season awards, which I feel like at this point for him, he doesn't really care. So we're going to go ahead and drop some spaces down. And this is an interesting part of the power rankings. 13 through 16 is what I'm looking at here. We have the Mavericks, who are up 4 spots. We had a very interesting conversation about Luka. And when I put that clip out on Twitter, Bill, people very much shared your sentiments that you were sharing, that
I saw
a
that.
lot of people around me have. And that is, it's not a Mavericks problem. It's a Luka problem.
Have I ever told you your social media followers are really smart people? Like, I'm a huge fan. I saw that. I was like, yeah, let's go. Team Bill. Look, nothing changed for me. I'm a doubter of the Mavericks. I'm a believer in Luka's individual excellence. Producers are going to find that I just do this off the top of my head, and the poor producers have to scramble and correct me in the chat. But I'm positive they're only 4-3 over the course of these 7 consecutive triple doubles that Doncic just put up. And while he didn't get to 30 in the last one, he did get to 25, which is its own record. So look, he's a statistical marvel. Can I give you some, because we got Mavericks 13, Knicks 14. I know we got to go here in a sec, but can I just give you the main thing that struck me when I saw the list? The Knicks are probably properly placed, but Jalen's back. OG is coming back any moment now. This is a team that's going to jump. I can't believe I'm saying it. I'm a believer in the Knicks.
On the way, Bill.
I'm in. Right. Hold down the damn Alamo. Let's go. They're coming. So I think the Knicks are in the right place. I think they're going to be a top 6 or 7 team by the end of the year, and I think they're an interesting team in the playoffs if they're healthy.
Last team I want to round out our power ranking conversation with is the Golden State Warriors. They're down 4 spots, which is interesting because, yes, they're obviously in the play-in. They've been struggling all season in some way, shape, or form. Or you can just say that it's the changing of the guard in the Western Conference. So this is to be expected. There's a lot of young talent out there. But I feel like they've been figuring it out and surging at the right moment. So I'm actually surprised that not only are they this low, but they've dropped. Are you surprised by this?
Look, no Steph, and that Spurs game was ugly, but it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch Wemby do his thing. Well, I'm not surprised because they're kind of where they are. Here's what I thought when I saw the list, and I guess I already knew this because of where they're in the 10 slot in the play-in, and they're not going to get caught by the Rockets or Utah. They're going to, at worst, Warriors are going to play in the wrong part of the play-in. What I think I'm going to do, I saw this. I want to put some money down on the Warriors to win the NBA Finals, and I'll probably start to hedge.
This is $1,000 for the first round.
I know. That's how I pay. This is the move, Ash. I find a team that I think is undervalued or a few. I bet on them to go deep, and then I start hedging or just cashing out the bet by betting on the other team, or I look for middles down the road. So, no, I think the Warriors are properly placed because of sort of where they are and the fact they don't have Steph. But I do think, more so than the Knicks, they have a potential to – I think their ceiling is so high, and even though the road they're going to make for themselves is brutal, I'm not saying I think it'll happen, but I think it's more likely than people are giving it credit for that when Steph gets back and we get to the playoffs, there's a world where the Warriors are pretty good.
Well, we will see. Listen, we got a little bit under or between 20 to 15 games left of the regular season. So we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about leading up to then. But we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to play a little fun game of, I guess, 21-ish questions. Not really 21, a little bit less than that, to get to know myself and Bill just a little bit better. You don't want to miss that. We'll be right back.
CBS celebrates Women's History Month.
Welcome back to Beyond the Arc, everybody. I'm Ashley Nicole Moss, Bill Reiter. And Bill, we're going to play a little game of questions, and hopefully the audience gets to know us a little better based off this game. So I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to run through a bunch of rapid-fire questions, and I want you to give us answers to these questions. Honest answers only, please. No politically correct ones. Thank you very much.
Here's what you're going to find about me, Ash. To a fault, I'm candid. So I promise you, nothing but the real deal coming right now. I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Starting it off. Favorite player of all time?
It's easy. Jordan. But before you roll your eyes, I grew up going back and forth between Dubuque, Iowa, which is 3 hours from Chicago, and the Chicago Burbs. A Bulls fan when I was growing up, was young enough to sort of be in middle school and high school for his various three-peats. And I love Michael Jordan. I've never, like, he's the only star I haven't met. So he's this unicorn out there that I know is real, but I haven't been around.
You've never met Jordan?
No. Do you want to hear a terrible story? I once got invited to a dinner with him as part of an insider thing. And the other company I worked with, I'll never forget you, Fox Sports 1, wouldn't let me go because I had to go on TV that night. Wouldn't let me fly to Charlotte. And I had now you can't go that day. Oh, I should have called in sick and just gotten fired. Me and like 5 people having dinner with Jordan.
The cat died, something like
yeah. Why did I think of that?
I mean, that morning. Geez, that's terrible. Okay. Favorite current player? I think I know your answer because it's the same as mine.
Yeah, it's Steph. And like all the obvious answers. But I'll say this. I met Steph as a reporter back when they were still doing shoot around in Oakland at the Marriott in Oakland upstairs. And before he was a star, and he is such a
nice guy. Yeah.
Such a great guy. And then I was at a dinner with a player when Steph scored 50 something in the Garden against the Knicks. Actually, we were watching it from Indianapolis, me and Paul George. And I've never seen Paul George was so in awe of Steph that like those 2 moments kind of encapsulated nice guy, rising star. And so I felt this sort of investment, even though that probably wasn't real as he became what he became. I love the guy.
Favorite team of all time?
Favorite team of all time. So here's the problem. It was the Bulls. But when you cover
a specific year, 95, 96.
Oh yeah. No, it would be. Can I do all 3 of the second three-peats? Because I was old enough to appreciate it and to like real. I mean, but the problem is I'm not a Bulls fan anymore because when you cover this stuff, you get to know people and it changes. Like I went to Missouri and I hated Kansas, and I got to know Bill Self and I like Kansas, and then friends of mine who went to Missouri wouldn't speak. It'd be like if you became a Celtics fan. So was the Bulls, was those 90s Bulls, specifically the last three-peat, but that kind of goes away when you do this for a living, unfortunately.
Okay. Least favorite player of all time or right now?
All right. They're the same guy. I'm sure he's a great guy. He and I have had some beef. He's screaming at me.
I know who this is.
I've had people come up and be like, but he's a great father and husband. And I say, I am too. I'm sure he is. Chris Paul. He doesn't like me. He has not been nice to me. He has not been nice. And look, have I?
What's the origin story of like your beef with Chris Paul?
Short version is I did a sit-down interview when I was at FS1 with him, DeAndre, and Blake, those three and me, and a big TV crew. And they canceled like 2 times. Whatever, it's fine. And when the interview happened, he just spent the whole interview telling me how stupid I was and what an idiot I was and how bad the questions were, and he got Blake to turn off his microphone. Like I didn't know what was going on. And then afterwards, he started screaming at me, like called me out in front of the entire Clippers organization, was dropping F-bombs. And I, to this day, don't know. So I asked for a meeting with him and he refused to meet with me. I went to the locker room to try to be like, and he wouldn't. I don't know. But I don't like him as a result. And it's a longer story. And now, to be fair, I have gone on every radio station that has ever asked me to be on and whatever market he plays on and made sure it's like it broadcasts their games as a guest and have told this story so like, all right, you want to fight? We can fight. I don't like Chris Paul.
It was just
I don't know why. I also was a big fan until I met the guy. That's why you don't want to meet everybody. Right.
Well, I don't know how you can top this story, but we're gonna try. Craziest thing that has ever happened to you with the NBA.
This is the worst thing. Okay, so this also, you know how Tiki Barber's in the news right now because he's going at Saquon Barkley. I love Tiki. He's my colleague at radio, but I blame him. He has this company where they have people like me interview famous athletes and then guests pay money to listen to them. I did it with Rodman, and how do I say this? Rodman came in enhanced on some of the natural wonders of the world and was so brutally rude, was inappropriate about sources in a way I can't even talk about in this podcast, like made claims about famous people that are clearly potentially slanderous, told me to shut up. It was just like an hour. It was the worst interview of my life on a stage where I couldn't get away from the guy. Wow. And then afterwards, he gave me a hug and told me how great I was. And then he went off into the night. Yeah.
You know what, though? I can, like, envision this story, like, so vividly.
It was bad.
Wow, Bill, you've lived a life.
Yeah, there's been some things.
Biggest surprise covering the NBA?
So I got my big break, actually, where you live in Miami, when I went to cover the Heat as a columnist. My job was to be critical, but based on reporting. And I was pretty brutal on LeBron that first year. I mean, I once looked it up, and I think I called him petulant like 383 times. I mean, I was pretty brutal. And a few years later, right, there was sort of a rapprochement between me and some of LeBron's people. And I guess we have a clip of it. Like, to my great surprise, the first time I ever interviewed anyone on camera, it was LeBron, because he agreed to sit down and hang out.
Best 3 players of all time.
Wow. Michael Jordan. Wow, this is tough. Michael Jordan, Dr. J, Larry Bird.
That is tough.
You give me 3?
I know.
Oh, my God. 3.
Because you just got into that Magic Bird thing, which is tough, too.
I know. I mean, can I get 4?
Sure.
All right, Magic.
You have a Magic 4th?
Yeah.
Why didn't I have a haircut? And what was up with my clothes?
Your boy band curls, though? It's the boy band curls. It's the little thin glasses. It's just very much like when Justin Timberlake
was bad
to go for the nerd look. You're kind of liking that look,
but not on purpose. Here's what happened. I got so nervous, I think, that I was sweating, and I think the moisture before LeBron sits down, Ash, and I'm like so nervous, and I know him, right? And I've never done a TV interview, and I go, "Hey man, you ever done one of these?" And he's nice. He goes, "A TV interview?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, Bill, I've done a couple." I'm like, "This is my first one. I'm nervous."
Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm an idiot. All right.
Clearly, Henry did not get his cool gene from you.
No, it's from Lori. It's not from me.
All right. Best moment at an NBA game for work.
So, you know what? It was Kobe Bryant's last game, and that was true before, obviously, his passing. It's more true now, and I had to choose between going to that game, if I remember this right, and going to the Warriors winning 73, because it was the same season. It was the same stretch of time, and I'm glad I chose to go to Kobe's game where he scored all those points. I mean, it was, and the press conference afterwards was a celebration of his of like, in retrospect, his life and who he was. So for me, and I've been pretty lucky. I've got to do this for a while. That was the highlight.
It's amazing. I remember watching that game, and I actually cried. Like, I was shedding full tears. And I'm not a highly emotional person. That's how I knew that, like, Kobe Bryant's impact on me as a player was something that, like, I've never experienced, which is why he's my GOAT. Like, watching him retire in real time just sent, like, such a reaction through my body. I'm like, I'm probably never gonna feel this way about a player, like, ever again.
You're not allowed to cry in press rooms, but I almost did too. Like, I'd like hold it in.
Okay, so best moment at an NBA game for fun. Watching Henry flirt with the Laker girls.
Yeah, I took my son Henry to a Lakers game with our producer Aaron, who knows a bunch of people there, and I told Henry, my son, who's 11, I love you, buddy. You can't. Who also actually asked me, "Can you bring me up on every podcast?" And I'm like, "I can't bring you up on every podcast." I told him, "Hey, it's work. Like, I know Jeannie. I know you can't go talk to people." He talked to Rob Pelinka, and then, as we'll see here, I think he like just went over and got a photo with Jeannie Buss, even though his dad said don't do it. And he went over and got a photo with Austin Reeves because why not? Let's do it.
Kid.
And then at one point he looked at me, he hit me in the arm and he pointed at the Lakers girls. He goes, "Dad, they're cute." I'm like, all right. And then he was just over there hanging out with the Lakers girls. You can see if you're watching. I know. So that was pretty, because it's my kid's joy, right? So that was last week. It was pretty cool.
It's very cool seeing like such a cool version of you that you'll never be.
I know. Yeah. Hey, I'm just glad I could raise. I don't need it. When you're a parent, you'll know. You just want your kids to have a better life than you, and he already does. Good job, Henry.
Most embarrassing thing ever.
This is not an NBA thing, but it's horrible, and it was when I was an NBA reporter. So I used to do a podcast with Andy Roddick, the tennis player. He is
Oh,
married to Brooklyn Decker.
there's an Illustrated model.
I was spending the night at their house. We had a lot to drink, and they had plied me with sushi. And I was outside, and like Andy was talking to somebody else, and they lived in Austin at the time. There was like wolves howling, and the wind was blowing, and the fire was crackling. And the moment this happened, Andy took a breath, and the wolves stopped for a second, the wind, and I farted really loud, and it was horrible. And but we drank a lot, so I thought, okay. I woke up in the morning and thought I didn't actually fart on Brooklyn Decker or near her. And then I woke up to this, like thousands of messages on my social media and this tweet. If you're, I'll just read it if you're listening. Sports writer, this is from Brooklyn Decker, just farted on me. We were deep in conversation and he didn't think it would make a sound. It did. It made a sound. This will shock you. I've never been invited back to the Roddick house. So, but there you go. That was pretty rough.
Well, wait, why did you fart on her? Like, were you?
Well, I didn't fart on her. Brooklyn's just being mean, although she's a sweetheart, a wonderful person. I was like an inch weird. So we were like having this deep conversation about having children and about how it changes your life. But in my defense, they took me out for dinner. And when Brooklyn Decker says, eat that, and you say, no, she's eat that, you're like, okay. Like, it's like, I must have had 17 rolls of sushi I didn't want and 7 cocktails from Andy I didn't need, in my defense. That was pretty terrible. I'm actually blushing right now thinking about it.
Cocktails and sushi in abundance, not a good idea. Okay?
Yeah, combo.
Just say no. Most surprising NBA take that you think is true.
Most surprising NBA take that I think is true. So I said this a while ago, and I think it's right. I think Steph Curry is a top 5 player of all time. And I am surprised how controversial that is with some people and how on point it is with others. I would put Steph as the 4th best player in the history of the game. And I think it's weird we don't have that conversation more often.
I'm not mad at that. All right, here we go. Last one. Biggest swing and miss on an NBA opinion ever.
So we have video of this, and I've been waiting I didn't bring it out for this one. We'll do it someday, but we gotta build trust, Ash. It's gotta be a safe space with you. You know how TV works. They're like, you have to give a take. They asked me a few years ago, who could be the biggest bust? And I said Jalen Brunson to the Knicks, which is the dumbest thing. It was, you're Knicks fans. Let me know. It's like, 3 times a week. It's just a nice little wake up to 50 mentions in my little thing. So I was wrong. I did not, by the way, in fairness, neither did the Mavericks. It's hard. I did not realize how extraordinary a player he was and a leader, and way to go, Knicks. I swung and missed.
All right. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, it's my turn on the hot seat. All right. So you guys don't want to miss this. We'll be right back.
The blackout mystery remains.
Welcome to March Madness. You just never know in the tournament who is going to shine.
Stream March Madness live on any device, anywhere, and be ready for anything.
Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Get ready.
In the interim, I hope everybody would be pleased to know Bill did not fart on me.
Close call.
We're in a good spot to start things off.
That's a lot of trust that I'm showing, by the way. That's
just me and all of our listeners, audio, video, social, will now know that you farted on Brooklyn Decker.
Make sure that you like, subscribe, listen, and unfollow me on all your social media platforms.
Good thing you're married now, because if you were a single man and told that story, you would have some issues dating for a little while.
No, it was. My wife is awesome, and she is very supportive. And even she said to me, "What were you doing?" I don't know. Just one of those. I have a lot of Larry David moments in my life. You're gonna discover.
Hilarious.
All right, it's your turn. Are you ready? It'd be amazing. It'd be amazing if you farted on somebody. If you just farted on Zac Efron.
That I did.
Yeah. All right. Favorite player, Ash, of all time.
I think everyone knows this at this point. I've told the story. Kobe Bean Bryant. Not just because of who he was as a player, but his mentality as a player. I feel like so many of his philosophies. One of my favorite is the just get 1% better each and every day. And I apply that to so many different things in my life. His impact on me just in so many different aspects was just so profound. And, it's crazy because I was telling the story to someone yesterday. Like, there's never been somebody that I've never met. Like, I never had the opportunity to meet Kobe, and it's such like a regret of mine in my career that we never crossed paths. But I think about him so much. For somebody I've never met, just he constantly crosses my mind, especially during basketball season. Like, I always think about him. There's something that always reminds me of him. It's just I feel like there'll never be another, and there will never be another player for him, like for me, that he was. So it's Kobe Bryant.
And by the way, you are speaking for so many people who feel that way here in LA and elsewhere. All right, I think I know this answer because you already told me, and it's a great answer. Favorite current player?
It's Steph Curry. I feel like there's no explanation needed. His game is just insane. But you know what? Like, to your point, he's such a nice guy. Like, I interviewed him when I was at Sports Illustrated. He had a book coming out, a children's book, and just such a nice, personable, like, man, and has every reason not to be. Like, one of the greatest we've ever seen, the greatest shooter of all time. He could be such an asshole. Can I say asshole? Well, I just did. Sorry.
You just did.
And he's
Hopefully.
not. He's such a nice guy. So, like, Steph Curry all day, every day.
That was awesome. By the way, quick aside, I do think what a great guy he is. Like, I think it has a bearing. I think it contributes to a locker room and a culture and the selfless way that they play. I love that you just swore. This is gonna work. I like this. All right. Here's what. How about a random NBA player that you are a fan of?
Steve Novak. Discount double check. Steve Novak was like one of my favorite players when he played for the Knicks. And like, people, when they ask me this question, I give him Steve Novak's name. They're like, I'm like, first of all, the discount double check. Like, come on. Like, I don't know. He was just so much fun to watch. I really enjoyed seeing him in a Knicks jersey for the time, Knicks tape, that whole era. Steve Novak. And I love that he's still like very much part of the organization. So sometimes they'll put the camera on him and he'll do the little thing. It's very nostalgic for me. Shout out to Steve Novak. I hope he's doing well.
It's been a long time since I thought of that guy. All right, it's a great answer. All right, can we go with a harder one? Not harder, but just like we'll sort of yin and yang it, right? A moment in your career that still makes you cringe.
Oh my God. People will never let me forget this. So when I had my interview series when I was at SI, I interviewed Bam Adebayo, and I asked him, who was the toughest player for him to guard? And previously, like off camera, it was just during March Madness, we were talking about Kentucky. Kentucky had just gotten eliminated, I believe, and Julius went to Kentucky, Bam went to Kentucky. So I said, is it a player like Julius Randle when asking him who's the toughest player he had to guard? And I said that because Julius can play multiple positions. So I wondered if that made it harder to guard someone who can do the 4 or the 5, depending on where you put them. And it was edited in a way on social media where it didn't explain the latter part. And it looked like I was asking somebody who was like, at that point, I think he had already been in the running for DPOY, if Julius Randle was a tough player for him to guard. To this day, they don't let me forget that.
Oh man, those are the worst. All right, how about similar vein here? Most nerve-wracking. You've done a lot of interviews with a lot of huge names. Most nerve-wracking interview.
Oh my God, Pat Riley. So here's the thing. Here's me. I'm like 22 here, right? So Pat Riley was like receiving some award in Miami for like his work with like a local hospital or something positive. And a lot of people didn't think he was going to stop and do interviews. So when, the company that I was working for at the time said he's going to stop, like we got a few minutes with him. Are you ready? I was freaking out because he has such a godfather aura about him. Like he's hair slicked back, tan, like he just got back from St. Bart's. Like he has like this cologne. It's this 3-piece suit, 4-piece suit, just very much like Don Corleone. And like he's like walking towards me. Mind you, I'm a Knicks fan. We know how that ended with in the Knicks. I'm like, dang, he's gonna hear me talk, and he's gonna know I'm from New York. And I wonder if he asks me if I'm a Knicks fan, do I lie? Like, I don't know what to say. He comes to me, and he's the nicest guy ever. And like, mind you, at this point, I'm already sweating because I'm watching him walk to me, and I feel like it's in slow motion. But he is the nicest guy ever, so personable. I think it's because he lives in Miami. In Miami, the sun just makes everybody happy. He was like, hey, how are you? I'm like, oh, you're really nice. I'm sorry for, what happened between you and the Knicks now. Now I don't hate you anymore. because you're such a nice guy. And then years later, I ended up working with the Heat. So it's funny how that came full circle.
That is all. That's all. That is great. That he is. I covered that Heat team, and I was pretty hard on them, so we were not buddies. But he is an intimidating man.
Yes.
All right. I'm gonna ask you this question. You asked me. I'm gonna send you thoughts. I'm gonna try to get in your brain so you can give the same answer I did. You won't.
Uh-huh.
Least favorite player of all time, or now, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Grayson Allen.
Yeah.
I strongly dislike Grayson Allen's game, and I have since college. I don't like to throw around the word dirty player. It's not something, I like to just throw that accusation around. But there's been a lot of instances in his career where, like, I look at things that he does, and I'm like, that's on purpose, bro. Like, I just don't like the way he approaches the game. I don't like his antics. I don't like his tactics. I haven't since college. Never met him. He could be the nicest guy ever. I also don't like that he kind of looks like Ted Cruz. It like annoys me. Like it just.
I've never thought of that. Oh, that's the meanest thing I've ever heard anyone say in my entire life.
It's just like there's a lot of tears about it that like he just annoys me. So it's Grayson Allen.
Thank you for saying I don't look like. I've never. Wow. That's good. Okay. A pinch me moment. That's pretty funny. That's good. A pinch me moment in your career.
Oh, that's easy. I got to interview Penny Hardaway at the University of Memphis. There he goes. I, like so many people, huge Penny fan, 1 cent shoes, the little Penny commercials. It was a very much a full circle moment. And I got to interview him with Imani Bates and Jalen Duren when they were all still at Memphis, which was very cool because I'm a big fan of Jalen Duren now, and I was a big fan of him in college. But Penny's like such a nice guy, and he's like so personable, but it's just so weird when like you grew up watching somebody or you grew up just idolizing somebody or being a fan of somebody, and then they're in your face and you're just like, wow, like I never really thought, like you always envision that moment when you're going to meet like somebody that like you're a fan of. And when you actually meet them and like the dust settles and you realize like what just happened, you're like, this life is crazy. Like the same thing happened to me when I met AI. I'm like, I just met Allen Iverson. Like I thought I was going to marry that man at one point. And like, here you are in front of my face.
Is he single?
No, he's married. Okay. But I mean, our age difference wasn't going to work.
Yeah, that was a problem.
I was like 12. You couldn't tell me that. So
I understand. I thought I was going to marry Scarlett Johansson. So that's
a little bit more like, you closer in age, that's more probable than me.
Yeah, it's more age appropriate, but I would say like as unrealistic a thing on the face of the earth as one could suggest.
Hey, what's his face from SNL? Got her.
I know, right?
Likes funny guys.
Is it the hair? What is this? He's funny.
Joss, I think is how you say it.
Yeah. He's funny. He's a funny guy. Funniest thing that ever happened to you on a basketball court?
Oh my God. So this isn't a professional basketball court, but growing up in New York, I used to go to Rucker Park a lot. And when I had the opportunity to do a feature at Rucker Park, it was the last time on the original court before they revamped it. They had like a deal like with the NBA PA to like redo the whole court. So this was the last time the original court was going to exist. We were there, we were covering the game, and I'm like talking to somebody and I see a basketball that like obviously they're bounced off the rim or something like coming towards me. So like I'm trying to be athletic, like Harlem Globetrotter type thing. So I kind of like reach back without fully turning around to grab the ball to kind of like push it back. But I guess I lost my balance. It had just rained, like a little sun shower. So I reach back, I slip on the court. Mind you, this is the last game that this court exists. It's packed. Okay, so like 155th is packed. I was wearing brand new ones right there, my UNC ones. That's me on the train going to Rucker Park. And they get scuffed. Mind you, those shoes are suede. The blue part is like a suede material.
They're cool.
So like I'm frantically like, anyone have a paper towel? Like I'm scrubbing my shoe between falling on the court in front of a bunch of people that I knew, like going back to like middle school, and scuffing my ones. It was just a very traumatic experience for me. I was like, nobody saw that, right?
Were the shoes okay? Were the shoes okay?
The shoes are good. I got a suede brush and I was like, yeah.
You got on it. You did the surgery. All right. This will be cool. How about an NBA memory involving your family?
Okay, so when Shaq was on the Heat still, and Nate Robinson was on the Knicks, we had seen a game between the Heat and the Knicks, and Nate Robinson was at the line. And I think we were in Miami. We were on vacation, and we hadn't lived here yet, and we had gotten tickets to the game. So we had great seats, and Heat fans were like mocking Nate Robinson's height, like on while he's at the free throw line, like calling him all sorts of versions of short and da 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 da. And my parents were like, oh nah, we're not about to do this. They start getting into a fight with the Heat fans who are dissing Nate Robinson while he's at the line. I've never been prouder of my parents. Like I've never felt more connected to them than that moment right there. They were going at it. The Heat fans going at it with them. And in that moment, I realized if I ever thought that I was adopted, this taught me that I was not, because these are my parents, because this is how I approach things. Thanks,
Mom and Dad brought it. Good job, those guys. All right.
Love it.
One more. You ready for you got one more?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Most surprising NBA take that you think is true.
Okay, I'm going to take this really, really quick. I believe Chris Paul, the trade to the Lakers is never vetoed by David Stern. He has a championship ring by now. And I know people say, well, there's so many other teams he had to go through, and though that team had to go through, they weren't even the best. He has a championship ring by now if he's a Laker and not a Clipper.
He was so I know that, like, on a personal level. By the way, that moment that made him my least favorite person ever, I voted for him 4th or 5th on the MVP ballot that year because I can try hard to separate those things. He is the best point guard I've ever seen play in a traditional point guard way since Isaiah Thomas with the Pistons.
Well, speaking of Isaiah Thomas, that brings me to our last topic of the show.
I love this topic.
IT is still waiting for his apology from Michael Jordan. As everyone knows, if you saw The Last Dance or if you didn't, I'll give you a brief synopsis of it. IT believes, and it's pretty much, unanimously believed, that Michael Jordan kept him off the Dream Team. And because of that, he never had the opportunity to play for the Dream Team, win the gold, the whole, shebang. IT was on a recent podcast and said, quote, until he apologizes on international television, not just national, but international television, ain't no conversation. Bill, I feel like I have heard this 100 times. And when I tell you Michael Jordan doesn't care, I strongly believe that somewhere in the world, he's drunk on a golf course somewhere without a care in the world and does not care about the apology that IT is waiting for and he will never get. I
agree. All right, so I'm going to full disclosure here. I am not friends with that many former NBA players. There's a couple. Mm-hmm. Isaiah, I would consider Isaiah Thomas almost a friend. Like we were in Miami at the same time, and he was kind of banished at FIU, and I was down there covering LeBron. Somebody introduced us, and we hung out. I love Isaiah as a guy. I know that he's not a real popular New York Knicks figure with the New York Knicks crowd. And here's my defense of Isaiah Thomas. You're not wrong. Jordan couldn't give a bleep. I'm not, I know you already swore. I'm not going to take it to the next level just yet. But I understand where Isaiah is coming from because I called him when that documentary came out, it was COVID, right? So we had nothing to do. That documentary was our sports, and I called him the minute it came out. We wrote a story for CBS Sports. He said the right things, but he was clearly hurt. He was clearly upset, and I think he was shocked that. So I think if somebody came after me, disparaged me, injured my career, and then humiliated me personally, whatever, many years later, I would hold a grudge. Can I tell you an Isaiah Thomas?
Holding a grudge, Bill, is one thing.
I'm okay with grudge holding.
Constantly saying whenever you were asked, if he doesn't apologize to me, there's no conversation.
He got asked, though.
Isaiah,
Draymond asked him.
Isaiah, listen to me. I want you to listen to me very, very closely when I say this. There's never going to be a conversation, my dear. Like you keep saying, if there's no apology, there's no conversation. There's never going to be a conversation.
But he's not begging for an apology.
I need you to let this go for your own growth, for your own peace.
I think he has.
Let it go.
I think it's basically F you, Mike, because I think in that interview with Draymond, he does. I don't think I know. He says some version of, look, if it's what he thinks, then hold on to it. If not, then apologize. But we're not good until then. By the way, I like beef. I really like it. I wish there was more of this. And I got to give Draymond credit for that, although maybe don't physically attack people on the court to create the beef. I like a little beef in the NBA. The story about your parents, right? That's good for the game. You want a little anger, a little animosity.
Yeah, you definitely want a little bit of that. I can't believe our show has come to an end so quickly. I feel like this is the fastest version of this show that we've ever done. It was so much fun. Absolutely love Tuesdays when I get to hang out with my guy, Bill. Aaron, were you not listening? Bill told his story.
I'm going to tell the long version. The next time you and I are doing a show, I'm going to circle back and I'm going to tell the long version of the time Isaiah Thomas. Well, he'll get so mad.
Well, listen,
I'll tell my golf story.
So tell your story.
Now?
That's how we'll close it out. Yeah, tell your story.
All right, Isaiah, if you're watching this, I love you, man. But I was in Miami, and I'm not a great golfer, and he brought me to some fancy schmancy famous golf club. I can golf. I can shoot a 90, right? I can shoot maybe an 89. Not amazing. I'm okay. And he puts me on the golf course, and it's like that Caddyshack scene. You probably haven't seen it, National Young, but all right. I'm in the zone, right, where the guy gets struck by lightning. I mean, I'm hitting the flag, the pin is dropping. I'm putting 30. So we're 30-foot putts in. I think I chipped one in. I'm 1 or 2 under through 5 or 6. Okay. I'm beating Isaiah Thomas in golf, and he is getting more and more and more angry and frustrated and put out, and he doesn't love it, and he doesn't think it's great. And I hit a ball. Isaiah, I love you, but you know this is true. I hit a ball. So you know how some golf courses, there's like houses, right? Off to the right or left.
Yeah.
I hit a ball over to the near a fence, and there's kids on the other side of the fence playing in their yard, little kids, and the door's open. But I don't hit the kids. And Isaiah comes over with me and goes, ma'am, are your kids okay? Did my friend hit your kids with his golf ball? And I'm like, what? No, I didn't. And this woman comes out, did you hit my kid with your golf ball? And Isaiah goes, ma'am, I am so sorry. They're fine. I'm sorry about that. She started screaming at me, and I was so shook. I shanked like 4 shots, and then Isaiah thought it was funny, and then he beat me by 10 strokes.
See, that's a perfect example of you winning the battle, but him winning the war.
Those guys are killers, by the way.
Yeah.
Those guys are like all these guys have become Hall of Famers. I know Gary Payton pretty well from an old job. They're nice guys, but do not compete with them, Ash. They will get you.
You know what? You should tell IT that until he apologizes on international television, there's no conversation.
Well, we can get him on the show if you want to. I don't put you on the spot, but we can get him on the show at some point, and we can try to work like, hey, here's a little advice.
Yeah,
let it go.
We should do that. Friends,
I like it, though. I'm not telling the obvious. I'll be like, hold on to that grudge. Nurture it.
Well, Bill encourages his friends to hold on to grudges and live in the past. I'm going to be on the more positive side of things. And thank you guys so much for joining us on this Tuesday edition of Beyond the Arc. Make sure you tap in tomorrow, 2 p.m., because Bill and John are going to be holding down the fort. And who knows what they'll be discussing. Until then, bye, guys.